Andrea from Lemoore, California, and you're watching Gospel Tangents, your best source for Mormon history, science, and theology.
Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. It seems likely that Brigham Young was initially lied to by people in southern Utah about the Mountain Meadows Massacre. But when did he learn the truth, and what did he do about it? Did he try to hide and cover for Mormons that were guilty of this heinous crime? Or was he interested in justice? Richard Turley will answer that question in our next conversation. Check out our conversation. I also want to remind you to please send me a liner. Tell me who you are, where you're from, and how much you love Gospel Tangents. We'll use that on the intro video in our next video. Now back to our conversation. So, I'll channel my Howard Baker here.
Okay.
What did Brigham know, and when did he know it?
Sure. Well, basically, Brigham Young knew that he had received a letter from Isaac Haight. Again, this is the story that you'll see in our book. He knew he had a letter from Isaac Haight midweek in the massacre, basically saying that the immigrants were under attack at the Mountain Meadows. He sent a letter back saying, let them go. Then he got word that they had been attacked and massacred. So the natural question he would have on his mind when he gets his first visitor from the south is, what happened? What happened here? And the story that he got, which we detail in the book, is a story of an all-Indian massacre.
And that was from John D. Lee, correct?
That's from John D. Lee, that's right.
So John just blamed it all on the Indians.
Yep. And he does it in such a way that he attempts to foist a burden of guilt on Brigham Young for his Indian policy, which was get Indians to align with us in the Utah War, to be enemies against the Merrycats, the Americans. Mm-hmm. And so the way John D. Lee told the story led Brigham Young to believe my policy has contributed to spilling the blood of innocent people on Utah soil.
So you're saying that when John D. Lee came up to tell Brigham about the massacre, he's essentially saying, Brigham, this is your fault because you're trying to align with the Indians.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It wouldn't have been that crass, but that's essentially what he was trying to do.
So was Brigham persuaded at all of that? Was he worried?
Brigham Young was horrified and sickened by the whole thing. Mm-hmm. I think after some reflection on it, his feelings were the same type of feelings that people have when something has an unintended consequence. This idea that, well, I didn't mean for that to happen. That certainly was not my intent. And then people fall back on intent. John D. Lee fell back on intent for the rest of his life. He got to where he was using a mantra that basically said he did nothing designedly wrong or nothing purposefully wrong. What he meant by that is he harbored no malice towards the people that were killed, but that was not enough to save him from execution for murder.
Okay, so John D. Lee, that was probably October, November of 1857 when he came up and told Brigham?
September 29th.
Oh, it was even in September. So as early as September, Brigham knew that there was a massacre. That time, John D. Lee blamed it all on the Indians, said the Mormons had nothing to do with it. Did Brigham ask any questions about saying, well, I got this report from, was it Dame or Haight that you said?
Neither one. There were rumors that came up from southern Utah.
Oh, it was just rumors. Yeah. Okay, so he had heard rumors that the immigrants were being attacked. He said, let them go.
Now, he got a letter from Haight saying that they were under attack at the Mountain Meadows.
Oh, okay.
And he sent back a letter, which we have, that basically says, let the people go. And if you can't, warn them first. But the strong military force we thought was coming is weaker than we thought it was going to be. It'll be next year probably before they come. So calm down. No reason to get excited. That was basically what the letter said.
Okay.
So then after writing that letter, to hear that there had been a mass killing of these people was very disturbing. You'd want to know, how did that happen? What happened? And John D. Lee's story was basically, the Indians got out of control. We gathered them together the way you wanted us to help fight the Americans, and they got out of control. And en masse attacked and killed the people in this company. Okay. Wilford Woodruff later said, we asked, were there any white men involved? And John D. Lee said, no, there weren't. So that was the initial story that Brigham Young had. It begins to fall apart fairly quickly as he begins to get reports from others. And so to see what he does about that, you need to look at what we write.
So, by the way, when do you expect this book to come out? Give us a rough time frame.
We have completed writing all the chapters. It's been source checked twice.
Mm-hmm.
We're just about finished with just a final quick read. We expect to get it out to readers in the next couple of weeks. And after we get these sort of preliminary peer reviewers, then we'll send it in to the press, and the press will have its own review process and then publication process. So it could be still a couple of years.
Okay. So a couple of years. So you're going to leave us hanging here for a couple of years?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, so do we know... So 1857, does Brigham believe it's the Indians then?
I think he does at first.
He does it first.
But then he gets different accounts of it. He gets an account from Jacob Hamlin that's different from that.
Okay.
Hamlin is in Salt Lake on September 11th when the massacre occurs. He goes south and very quickly learns from Paiutes. He learns from his own adopted Indian son about what happened at the massacre because his son witnessed it. He heard from his wife what she had heard. And then he had 3 of the immigrants' children in his home. So from all of that, he got a much different perspective than what Lee had told. He comes to northern Utah in the in June of 1858, and he tells a different story. And at that point, there are 2 stories. One told by a person who claimed to have been on the ground at the time, a first-hand witness. The other one, a year later, by somebody who was not on the ground at the time, but who claimed he had good information. So the result of that was that he needed more information to try to figure out how to reconcile the 2 accounts. And he soon got that from church leaders that had gone to southern Utah and then who came back to northern Utah.
So when would you say that he was clear that it was Mormons that were involved in the attack?
By the middle of 1859, he was very convinced that there was disturbing information about members of the church being involved, and he was telling them at the time, look, if you had something to do with this, you're not going to be protected. Get yourselves ready to go to trial. And I think he was very much in hopes that trials would occur. People said that he wanted to have those trials in probate courts that were operated by local bishops. Ultimately, he comes to the conclusion that the best way to resolve this is have it be done in the territorial courts, the federal courts, if you want to call them that. Unfortunately, for the reasons that we describe in the book, it didn't happen. And those are political reasons.
Okay. So when was he removed as governor, by the way?
So in order to be removed as governor, he had to basically be replaced by a new governor, and the new governor did not come into town and accept, take his oath of office until 1858.
1858. Okay, so he was removed as governor pretty soon after this.
Well,
not because of this, but
he had a 4-year term, and after that 4-year term, the federal government wanted to appoint somebody else, but that person declined. So under the law, the way it currently was, he remained in office until he was replaced. And in order to be replaced, his successor had not only to be appointed, but he had to come and take his oath of office. So that was Alfred Cumming who replaced him, and Cumming didn't get into the valley until the middle part of 1858.
Okay. All right. Well, what are the best lessons that we've learned from Mountain Meadows Massacre? What are some things that you didn't expect that you've learned and that we can learn from this?
Well, I've done a lot of studying in books on the history of violence, and mass killings of this type, unfortunately, occur all over the world and through time. And they often occur because people are engaged in groupthink. If there is one person or a small group of people who choose to disrupt the groupthink, people who in the literature are called good Samaritans, ones who decide to come to the aid of those who will be the victims, or step forward and say, stop it, don't do this, then generally a mass killing like this doesn't occur. So I think one of the lessons we can learn from this is not to fall into the kind of peer pressure to commit sin or crime. Mm-hmm. There's always a tremendous amount of pressure on people to do things that are wrong. And if you'll resist that temptation and choose to do what's right, you can have a tremendous influence on a lot of people and prevent some horrible things from happening. That's one lesson. Another lesson is that whenever people got together in large councils or groups and talked things over, they tended towards making the right decision. When they broke away from those councils and tried to make decisions alone or just kind of in pairs or maybe 3 people, they made the wrong decisions. So there really is safety in council, safety in those numbers. Mm-hmm. That was something new to learn.
Okay. So looking back on it now, you've got 150 years or whatever. This is in the past. Do you think you would have enough evidence, if you were the prosecuting attorney, let's say, to go after William Dame and Isaac Haight and secure a conviction? Do you have enough evidence that way, or would it end up the way it basically did?
Well, there clearly was enough information to convict Lee. I think that if we had evidence that was considered admissible, based on what we know today, we could convict Haight and Dame, and also a few others.
Can you say who the others are?
Well, of the 9 indicted, I think we could probably convict most of them. There are 1 or 2 who are kind of puzzles on the list, about why they were there. I think those were thrown on perhaps just because they had told stories about the massacre, or they were misjudged as one person. In fact, they were somebody else. Mm-hmm. So, but I think most of them could be convicted.
Okay. All right. Well, do you have any last thoughts here you want to share with me before we...
No, except to say it's a horrible, horrible event. I think it's the worst event in Latter-day Saint and Utah history. There's a lot that we can learn from it. Mm-hmm. So I hope as people read the books and visit the sites, they'll ask themselves, so what can we learn from this? Mm-hmm. How does it change me?
Do you think that we owe an apology to the Indians for trying to blame it on them?
At the event at the Mountain Meadows, when then Elder Henry B. Eyring went down to read a First Presidency statement, that First Presidency statement pointed out that Paiutes had for too long borne the brunt of the blame for which they had suffered. And I think it's important that people recognize that while there were Indians involved in the massacre, they would never have participated in it had they not been cajoled into it by local white settlers who promised them not only rewards but made promises such as the idea that they would not be injured, which proved not to be the case. There were Paiutes who were injured by the gunfire.
Oh, were any killed or just injured?
It's difficult to tell for certain, but injured for certain, and possibly 1 or 2 killed.
Wow. All right. Well, I thank you for spending so much time here on Gospel Tangents.
Happy to do it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Richard Turley. He's a very busy man, and I really appreciate him spending so much time talking with us. Thanks, Rick. I really appreciate it a lot. I'd also like to encourage you to please check out all of his books. I'm really looking forward to Part 2 of Saints, the next volume in church history, as well as his next book coming out, but it's probably going to be a while. But I'm really looking forward to it, so please buy it when you have the chance. In our next conversation, I'd like to introduce Brindis Roberts. She's a black woman from Georgia, and I was really surprised to hear that she joined the LDS Church despite her knowledge about the black ban. I think that would have been very hard for me, but it's interesting to hear how she decided to join the church.
I think I gave my missionaries, as they would say in Georgia, a run for their money because I asked a number of probing questions. Mm-hmm. I think at one point when I had decided that I would have my baptismal interview, I said to them, I'm 50 years old. I'll have lived a very full life before I even contemplated joining the LDS Church. I need a grown person to interview me. I do not need to be interviewed by 2 19-year-olds. And so the mission president conducted my baptismal interview.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes.
We'll have a transcript out shortly on this conversation, and you can purchase individual copies at our website at gospeltangents.com/shop. If you want to be the first to get a copy, please subscribe on our website for just $10 a month. I'll send it to you first as a PDF. Or if you'd like a physical copy for $15 a month, I'll be happy to send that to you as well. You can get our transcripts at our Amazon.com author page. I've got a link here, but just do a search for Gospel Tangents interview and you should be able to find a bunch of them there. Please subscribe at patreon.com/gospeltangents. For $5 a month, you can hear the entire interview uncut. And for $10, you can get a PDF copy. We've also got a $15 tier where if you want a physical copy, I'll be the first to send it to you. So please subscribe at Patreon or on our website at gospeltangents.com as well. For our latest updates, please like our page at facebook.com/gospeltangents. And also check our Twitter updates at Gospel Tangents as well. Please subscribe on our Apple Podcasts page at tinyurl.com/gospeltangents, or you can subscribe on your Android device. Just do a search for Gospel Tangents. Thanks again for listening. Click here to subscribe, here for a transcript, and over here we've got some more of our great videos. Thanks again.